Hi guys, this is our video for lesson 10-2 in your playlist. We're going to talk about factoring a polynomial using the X method. So when I factor this time, I'm going to get two sets of parentheses. Instead of like our GCF, we had the GCF outside parentheses, and then one set of parentheses with all the leftover. So sometimes our polynomials can be factored into two factors in two different parentheses. So there's more than one term in the parentheses. So we're going to use that X puzzle that we talked about, where you have to multiply the two side numbers to get the top, and you add the two side numbers to get the bottom. Okay, but we're going to know the top number and the bottom number, and we have to figure out those side numbers. Okay, so the way we're going to do this is, here's our standard polynomial, our trinomial. We're going to call the number with the x squared a, the number with the x term b, and our constant c. Okay, so this is just a general rule. My kitty's trying to get in on the video. Hold on. Cat, go away. Okay, so first, there's lots of steps, but we'll get this and we'll get lots of practice doing it, so it won't be too hard going. So we're going to multiply the leading coefficient of the trinomial and the constant. So our leading coefficient is that a times the c. So those are really numbers, right? We're just multiplying the first number and the last number. And then we're going to place the product in the top of your x. Okay, so if we go to example 1, we have our first number is hidden. Remember, it's a 1. We multiply 1 times 56 and place it at the top of the x, which is 56. Okay, and then 2, we're going to place the coefficient of the x term b in the bottom of your x. So this number with our x that's in the middle, that's our b, it's going to go in the bottom. So with our example 1, the number in the middle is 15. I'm going to put it in the bottom. And use a t-chart to help find the factors of the top number so that add to the bottom number. Place these factors in the side of the x. So this was kind of like what was in our puzzle on Friday before we left, if you were there. So we're going to make a t-chart for 56. I'm going to use the calculator trick just to get some practice for those that need it. I'm going to go to my calculator. And we're going to go to y equals. We'll put our number, 56, divided by x. And then go to your table, so second graph. We have 1 and 56, 2 and 28, 3 gives a decimal, so we don't want that, 4 and 14, 5 gives a decimal, 6 gives a decimal, then we have 7 and 8, and then 8's our next number, which is repeating, so we stop. We want to see what factors add up to 15. Well, 7 and 8 add up to 15, so we're going to place those on the side of our x. So 7 times 8 is 56. 7 plus 8 is 15. So that works in our x puzzle. We're going to, step 4 says rewrite the trinomial, separating the middle term to the terms on the side of the x. So we're going to rewrite this 15 by splitting it up with 7x plus 8x. So rewrite, we're going to keep our first term, x squared. If you want to write the 1 in there, you can. Plus, now we're rewriting this to 7x plus 8x, because those are both positive, right? And then the plus 56 stays. Okay, step 5, group with parentheses the first two terms and the last two terms. So I'm going to do 1x squared plus 7x goes in one set of parentheses. And then our next two, there's a plus in there, 8x plus 56. I have two groups here. Now we're going to factor out the GCF for each group. So like what we did in our previous lesson. So if I look at x squared and 7x, I want to find the GCF. Well, there's a 1 here. So number-wise, my GCF is 1. And with our variable, they both have an x. And I'm going to take the x with the smallest exponent, which is this invisible 1 here. Okay, now factor it out. I'm going to divide and get the leftovers, right? So 1 divided by 1 is 1. X squared and divided by x. We're subtracting the exponents. 2 minus 1 is 1. The 1 is invisible up here. And then add 7 divided by 1 is 7. X divided by x cancels. We get a 0, which means it cancels, right? So then we have a plus. There's a plus there. And we need to find the GCF from this group. So if I look at my numbers, 8 and 56, we have the t-chart for 56. So let's make a t-chart for 8. Some of you may already know what that factor is, but for those of you that need help, here's the extra help. 1 and 8. 2 times 4 is 8. 3 will give us a decimal. 4 is there already, so we can stop. Now, common factors are 1, 2, there's a 4, and there is an 8 on both. So our biggest one is this 8. Now variables, I have an x here, but no x here, so they don't share any variables. So my GCF is just 8 in that second group. And then divide it out. 8 divided by 8 is 1, and the x stays. Plus 56 divided by 8, you see up here, is 7. Step 7, what's left in the parentheses should be the same, and they are the same. So we know we didn't make a mistake yet. If these are not the same, you need to go back and check your work, see if you made a mistake. If you can't find the mistake, or you know for sure there's not a mistake, then this trinomial cannot be factored. Okay, so they are the same, so we want to say this is one factor. So what is the same is the 1x plus 7. Remember that 1 can be invisible and you don't have to write the 1. And then the second factor is the combined GCFs of each group. So my second factor is this 1x. And then the plus 8 that's here. And I did that backwards. Shared factor, yes, and leftovers. So we have our shared factor in there and our leftovers, the 1x plus 8. Okay, example 2. We have our trinomial here. So first we're going to multiply the first number and the last number. We got to take into account that sign in front also. So we're doing 4 times negative 3 is negative 12, and we're going to put it at the top. And then our middle number goes in the bottom of the x. So the negative 4, again, keeping in mind what that sign is in front, we're going to keep that sign. And then we're going to make a t-chart for negative 12 and circle the factors that add up to negative 4. So this top number is what you're factoring. Now, if this was just a positive 12, we'll just pretend it's positive right now. So 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4, and then 4 that's there. Now this can also, now it has to be negative, right? So only a negative and a positive make a negative number. So we could say all of these 1, 2, 3s are negatives, or we could flip it and say they're positive and the other numbers are negative. Okay, so negative numbers, you have to think about both possibilities there, positives and negatives. Okay, now which two add up to -4? -2 plus 6, that looks promising, but that's a +4. So let's check out this other one. 2 minus 6, or 2 plus -6 is a -4, because 6 is bigger and it's negative, right? So these are the factors that we want, 2 and -6. Okay, again, if you guys figured this out on your puzzles before spring break and you know how to get those numbers without this T-chart, you can take that shortcut. Okay, now we're going to rewrite the trinomial. So our first term stays the same. Our second term, we're going to split up using these side numbers. So that's a positive 2x, and that's a minus 6x because it's negative, and then that -3 stays at the end. Now let's group them. I'm going to save some rewrite time, and I'm going to group them like that. Okay, now we're going to factor out the GCF from each group. So if we look at 4 and 2, they're both divisible by 2, and they both have an x. Smallest exponent is that x by itself, so it has an x. GCF is 2x. Factor it out, so 4 divided by 2 is 2. Subtract the exponents on the x. 2 minus 1 is 1, so it's just x. Plus 2 divided by 2 is 1. And then subtract the exponents on the x. 1 minus 1 is 0, so it canceled. And then we have a negative and a negative. Since they're both negative, we're going to factor out a negative number. And then we have a 6 and a 3. They're both divisible by 3. So -6 divided by -3 is +2. Keep my x. I forgot to point out, not both of those have x's. That's why we stopped the number. Okay, and then our -3 divided by -3 is a +1. Okay, that's where a lot of mistakes come from. We forget that negatives, and we get mixed up with our signs there. All right, so now we check, do those parentheses match? And if they do, then we're on the right track. And our first factor is 2x plus 1, the shared factor. And then our leftovers, we have a 2x in front and a -3 here on our GCF. And that is your answer. Okay, so these things in the parentheses, those are factors. There's 1, 2 factors there. And we're going to see why that's important in a couple weeks when we do some more graphing. All right, example 3. We have our trinomials, so we're going to take our first number and our last number and multiply. Remember to watch for that sign in front. So it's 2 times -10, it's -20. And then our middle number, it's hidden. There's a 1 there, right? Goes in the bottom. Now we want to make a T-chart for -20. So for the moment, we're going to find the factors that add up to 1. So for the moment, we're going to pretend that this is a +20 and just find the factors for +20. So 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 3 doesn't work, 4 and 5, 5 is the next number, and we're done. Okay, so to make it negative, one of these has to be negative, right? And then we can have the flip side. Those are positive now, and the other numbers are negative. Right, and we want to find the factors that add up to +1. So this is not it. This 4 and 5 look promising. 5 is the bigger number, and it's positive, so our answer is +1. There you go. So we have -4 plus 5 is +1, And -4 times 5 is -20. Then we're going to rewrite the trinomial or polynomial. So 2x squared stays the same. And then we're going to use our side numbers to rewrite the middle term. So we'll do a -4x. That's a +5, so plus 5x. And then our last term stays the same, -10. Then group with parentheses our first two and our last two. And then step 6, factor out the GCF from each group. Oh, forgot some space in there. So 2x squared and 4x, they both have a common factor of 2. They both have an x. Smallest one is this one by itself. And then divide. 2 divided by 2 is 1. And then subtract the exponents from the variable. 2 minus 1 is 1. Minus 4 divided by 2 is 2. And then the x's will cancel. We have a positive and a negative, so we're going to factor out a positive number. And they're both divisible by 5. That's an x, that's not an x, so they don't even share an x. They just have a GCF of 5. And then divide each one. 5 divided by 5 is 1. Keep the x. And then -10 divided by 5 is -2. Right, and then check, are the parentheses the same? Yes, so we can continue our factoring. That's our first factor. And then our leftovers, we have the GCF, so 2x and then plus 5. All right, so those are our factors. Now, why do we call them factors? Because what is a factor? A factor means you multiply two things, you multiply it to get an answer, right? So if we multiply these, we're going to get this answer. Remember using box or FOIL method? We use 1x minus 2 and 2x plus 5. We can multiply. 1 times 2 is 2. We have 2 x's, so x squared. 2 times -2 is -4, 1x. 5 times 1 is 5, we have 1x. 5 times -2 is -10. So we get 2x squared, and then we combine our like terms. 5 plus -4 is 1x, and then bring out our -10. So if we multiply these two binomials together, we get our answer that we ended up with. And that's one way you can also check your work to make sure that you factored correctly. Use the box method when you're done, or FOIL method, and see if you end up with that same answer. All right, guys, well, good luck. You have some activities assigned in Google Classroom to go look for those matchups, part 1 and part 2. Make sure you're reading directions so that you don't do extra work. And if you want to do extra work just for practice or you're bored, feel free to do it. I miss you guys, and I will hopefully see you soon.